Hey everybody, welcome back. So now that I have all the parts, I can finish this job up with the brakes and the front differential, the locker and all that. Let's get it back together. I've got the new discs pressed back into the freshly cleaned rotors, and to some of you they may not look clean, but to me they are clean. And let's finish turning the lights on out here. There we go. That's better. And I pretty much don't have anything left to do except rebuild the calipers, pack the wheel bearings, put the inner wheel bearing and seal in, and then put the whole thing back together. Oh, I got to paint the front wheels still, but that's something I can do anytime. So let's rebuild these calipers. Now, if you have more money than I do, you might want to buy reman calipers. They're about 50, 60, 70 bucks a pop, depending on who you buy them from. I've got the poor man's rebuild kit over here. These are like $4 or $5 each. You get the outer seal, and then you get a quad ring. And when I get them out of the package, I'll show you what the quad ring is, and some crocus cloth. So we got to get these apart, and then we're going to clean them up a bit, but not too much because you can't really see them. And we got to get them apart. So the first thing we're going to do to get them apart, we got to get the pistons out. And I'm sure somebody makes a tool for it, but here's what I've always used. Just stick your air hose in there and pump, and that piston should pop out. Depends, of course, on how old and grimy and nasty they are. You know what? Put some stuff in there to give that piston a cushion, and then put something over top of it so it doesn't spray your face and everything and everyone around you with brake fluid and dirt and whatever else is in there. And I'm going to get the camera on the tripod. Sorry if I'm shaking it all over. And we're going to see if that works for us here today. I have not tried it yet on either one. So let's do this. Some of these will pop right out and some you have to battle. And this one I'm going to have to battle. It does not want to come out. It is tight. So I'm going to get a pair of pliers, a big pair of channel locks, and I'm going to wiggle it around a bit, see if I can't get it loose and pop it out. Yeah, those aren't budging. Oh, that's a pain. That's a pain. Yeah, that's not budging. Oh my goodness. I may have to put a C-clamp in there and clamp it in order to get that to even rock for me a little bit. Oh my goodness, that one is stuck. Oh, no, there it goes. Okay. There we go. So it's not that stuck. Okay, there we go. All right. Let's see if we can blow that out of there now. There we go. Just that simple. So there's our super grody, nasty looking piston. And our quad ring and seal are still in there. The quad ring, you can usually get those off with a screwdriver. Why don't I have gloves on? Hang on. Okay, we got a big screwdriver. Let's just get that seal out of there. I didn't even need it. This is the kind of seal. It's not, oh, look at that. It was messed up, wasn't it? Huh, okay, that might be why it's so grody inside. Whoever put this one together last time didn't get it seated properly. These don't have a metal part, you know, like a wheel bearing seal. They're just all rubber, and they tuck into a groove. And if they're not in that groove, then you get something like that, and they don't seal properly. But the brakes always worked okay, so I mean, we have that going for us. So the only thing we're going to reuse is the piston, And we want to make sure there's nothing wrong with it, because if there is something wrong with it, at that point in time, you might just be better off going to the remand ones. So I'm just going to clean it out. And if you got a can of brake clean, that'll clean these up really quick. I used my last can of brake clean. Oh, you know what I have? I think I've got a can and there's spider webs in it. That's funny. There's spider eggs and crap in it. On the inside. That's because of that seal wasn't down properly. All right, I need to, here's the other part of the poor man's rebuild kit, some crocus cloth. So all we want to do is just clean, and see that spot's going to clean up really nicely. Oh yeah, this piston is fine. Just want to clean it up a little bit. I might dump all of this in the ultrasonic cleaner. And this in here, this is grody, my goodness. Yep, that's grody. Okay. These are going in the ultrasonic cleaner. Grab something like this, and we're just going to dig in there and we're going to get that old quad ring out. And there it comes. Did it break? Oh, there it is. All right, there's the old quad ring. We're throwing all those pieces away. Let's get the other one apart first, and then we'll put all of this in. We'll wipe it out as best we can, and then we'll put all of this in. Let's get that. Let's make sure we're getting that piston to move a little bit. Oh yeah, that one's not a problem. It's moving easy. This seal was probably put on correctly. I don't think I did these. I think I bought these as remands. So, I mean, not that I'm not capable of putting a seal in incorrectly, but back when calipers were so cheap, it made no point in to do it yourself. It really didn't. At least I didn't think so. All right, let's see if we can pop this piston out. Make sure you keep your fingers out of the way. There we go. That one came right out. And it brought the seal with it. And look, that seal was incorrect because there's no warped or wiped out spots on it. So that piston is a lot cleaner, and the inside of this caliper is going to be quite a bit cleaner too. I managed to get both calipers and both pistons in there. So I am going to give it 30 minutes. I can just go backwards from 5 to 30. That's as long as this thing will run on the settings. I'm going to turn the heater on to get it up to 50C, and I am going to start it. And as soon as I press this, the microphone on the camera is going to go berserk. So I will see you back in 30 minutes. I may give this 2 runs, depends on what this thing looks like when we're done, but they weren't that bad. So here we go. Okay, a couple of quick things to note about disc brakes before we put it back together. This surface down in here on the walls of the bore of your calipers, get it clean. But if it's pitted or spotted or scratched, it doesn't really matter. It is not a sealing surface. Your quad ring, your square ring goes in this groove here, and then the piston moves up and down on it. So it's the piston that's the sealing surface. If your pistons are all pitted, and I think these are hard chromed, if the hard chroming is coming off of them, flaking off, and there's pitting and rusting, it's no matter how much you wire wheel it, no matter how much you sand it, it's never going to last. It's going to tear the ring up that goes in here. At that point in time, I don't know what pistons cost. Unless you can find a good condition pair for cheap, you might be better off just buying reman calipers at that point. But we want to get the caliper clean, and we want to get these 2 grooves really cleaned out of any kind of schmoo or crap or anything that's in them, because one is where our quad ring, our seal ring seats, and the other in here is where that dust boot seats. Once we have that, we can start putting this back together. These are in nice shape. I don't have to do anything about that. And yeah, let's put these back together so that they'll be ready to go back on the Jeep tomorrow. Now, one other point, don't lubricate these things with anything other than brake fluid. I am told you can put synthetic lubricants on them. I don't know that. All you really need to put them back together is brake clean. So let's put them back together. It's really not hard to do at this point. It's tricky and it's fiddly sometimes, but it's not hard. Okay, so I wound up having to take a couple of days off of this because Amazon sent me the wrong caliper rebuild kits. Apparently, some places think there could be two different calipers on 80 CJ-7s or CJ-5s. I've worked on dozens of CJ-7s and CJ-5s in that era, and I have never seen a different caliper than these Bendix calipers on them. So anyway, maybe they can be. I've certainly never seen one. I think they're screwed up. But anyway, I had to send those back, and of course they can't get me any for 10 days or so. So I called Napa. Here's a funny story. I called Napa. Napa's always been my go-to for hard to find parts. Called them up, told them I had an 80 CJ-7. I needed caliper rebuild kits, and nope. Well, after asking me what the make, model, and year was 6 different times, they finally said, nope, can't help you, don't got them. And I said, can't even get them? Nope, sorry, thanks for calling, bye. And that was it. I called the O'Reilly, which is literally like 50 feet away from the Napa. And the guy looked them up and says, got 5-lug wheels or 6-lug? I said, 5-lug. He goes, nope, I don't got them in the store, but I can have them here by the morning. And there they are, and they're the right ones. And they were only $5-6 each. So I'm telling you, I'll put the part number in Amazon below, but Amazon wants double for them what O'Reilly wants, so you'll know what to do there. It's a strange day when O'Reilly beats Amazon, or excuse me, when O'Reilly beats Napa for difficult to source parts, as if CJ-7 parts should be difficult to find in Arizona. Don't put anything but brake fluid in these things. Don't use any petroleum products. Some of the new synthetic lubricants might be okay to go on brakes. I don't know. But petroleum products will typically wreck rubber brake parts. So let's get these things put back together. They're all cleaned up, painted, and ready to go. Okay, there's kind of a trick to doing these. It's not really hard once you know the trick. And honestly, I've never done them much because in the old days, if the pistons were bad, you were spending $15-18 for a kit with pistons per side, and you used to be able to get these reman calipers for like $25. Now that they're 50 or 60, it makes more sense. But I did it enough of the ones when I couldn't find remans that I know how to do it. So first thing first, we're just going to kind of put some brake fluid on everything, and it's not going to absorb it, so you don't got to soak it. And then we're just going to kind of put this, what I used to call a quad ring, this square O-ring. You just kind of poke it in where it goes. And it can be fiddly to get in. Everything to do with this can be fiddly. You just kind of work it around. Well, so much for that idea. You just kind of work it around until it all goes in where it's supposed to. Make sure it's not twisted or you'll have trouble getting it together. There we go. And just kind of look at it, make sure it's not twisted, and I do have it twisted. So just get it in there untwisted. Sometimes you just push on it and it'll pop in right. We get it up to the light here so I can look around it better. Because you don't want to cut it going back together because you'll hate yourself. And note that the pistons have a big ass chamfer on them. So you want those that chamfer area wet with brake fluid because you're going to force the piston. You're going to force the piston past that quad ring. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the dust seal and we want to note how it goes on. And the dust seal fits in this upper ring. I don't know if you can see it. There's 2 rings in here. A lower one that the quad ring fits into. That's some terrible light for that. Trying to show you that, isn't it? There's that one the quad ring fits in and you can see it. And there's another groove right above it. The dust seal fits in that. And you can't put it on first. Because if you put it on first, you'll never get the piston around it. And you can't put it in last because once the piston is in, you can't get it in either. So how we do this is we kind of identify how it goes This side with this extra little, if you can see it, this extra little groove sticking out there, that goes like that. So what we want to do is we want to put it on the piston and right on the very bottom of the piston. Okay, you want to get this dust seal on like this, right on the bottom of the piston, with this lip that needs to go in hanging off. Because if this lip is up on the piston, you can't get it in. So it needs to be hanging off here at the bottom. I used to know a guy who could put this on first, then put the piston on top, and then go around it with a little tool like this. There we go, a little tool like that, and pull it up over. But you got to be careful because most of these tools are sharp, and I don't want to take a risk poking a hole in it. And I've done it this way before, so that's how I'm going to try it. So with that pulled down, you don't want to pull it off. Don't get it down onto that chamfer, but get it down as low as you can. And then we're going to sit it right where it goes, and then we're going to try and work that little ridge down into that groove. And you can get it started, tip it to get it started back here first where it's hard to reach, and then just work around and poke it. Try not to poke a hole in it or tear it. But if you get it set on just right, you'll find it'll pop in there fairly easy for you. Goop it all up with brake fluid, of course. And if you push the piston down too far, it won't go. That ridge cannot be pushed down on, or pushed onto the piston, or you won't get it in, or it won't be as easy. It's just fiddly, and oops, I had it going there and I yanked it out. And you just kind of got to be gentle. Once you think you have it worked in all the way around, then you can push the piston in. And when the piston's in, then you can lift. And I'll show you when I get it. I think I got this one, and I thought I had it in, and now it's up again here. All right. Like I say, just keep poking it gently. Try not to get the piston too far down in it or up off of it. And of course it's awkward. Maybe I can rest it against this one. There we go, that helps a little bit. Just kind of work it around gently. See if you can't get it all in there. And it'll wrestle with you. I mean, that's what they do. They wrestle with you. Even doing this without the piston being on, it'll still wrestle you. I think I'm winning. I think I've won a round in front. Let's look back in here. Yeah, I got that first, and I think that's still down. Okay, so now I think I can push the piston in. And sometimes these pistons will go in by hooks. I'm up a little bit here. Let's get that poked down. Hey, these can be tough to get in once the piston is on that area. You just kind of got to be gentle on it or you will tear it. Yeah, I'm not going to get that. I've got to pull that piston back out there. That's okay. And if you think your time is worth more than this, buy the remans. All right, I've got it now. So some of these, the pistons, you can push in by hand, and some of them, you're going to have to use a C-clamp. Let's see what this one will do for me. Just rock it slightly and squeeze it. Okay, this one's not going to go. Let's get the C-clamp. I got a brand new one. And we're just going to slide the clamp in like this. And I'm going to spin it so my crank is off the edge of the table. Make it a little quicker. Try and get it right about in the middle of the piston. And now we're just going to crank it down, and it should pop it right in. There it goes. Didn't take much at all. And now we just want to push it down until the dust seal pops into its groove. And right like that. And now we can back the C-clamp out. And are we not in the groove all the way around? So take a little hook like this and just kind of be careful. Or we can maybe squeeze that in a little bit further. Because I'm not quite in. Oh, there we go. Okay. Now I'm in the groove all the way around. Now what you can do is you can take your screwdriver and you can kind of lift this lip up and you can kind of go around it to make sure that that's in all the way. If it's not, you're going to have a hell of a time getting in at this point because there's not enough room. When that piston's in, it can't come out of that groove. We're in all the way around, so this caliper is rebuilt. We're going to do the other one. Okay, I've got both calipers back together now, and these pistons should go, once you've pushed it past the quad ring, they should not move hard. You shouldn't have to reef on your clamp. I mean, it's almost like it shouldn't be any tougher than a slightly rusty clamp going in. Might not be able to move them by hand, but it shouldn't take much pressure. But there's also kind of a way we can test them. Now, if you do this yourself, turn your air pressure down. Don't use 100, 150 PSI to do this. Use like 20 or 30 or 40 at the max. We're not trying to blow a stuck piston out. We just want to move it a little bit. And if you can picture the quad ring being two of them like that, as that piston moves past the quad ring will kind of go like that and then let the piston move. And then when you take your foot off the pedal, that ring should pull that piston back a little bit. And that's why disc brakes don't need springs to pull the pads away, so the pads aren't always rubbing really hard. The quad ring pulls it back. So to test it, put your bleeder fitting in, and kind of only has to be finger tight. Put enough wood in there so that you're not in danger of shooting out the piston out of it. And what we want to see if I can get it to where you can see it, what we're looking for is we're looking for that piston. It's a little bit too long a piece of wood. What we're looking is for that piston to move a little bit, and then when I take air pressure off it, it should go back a little bit. So let's see if I can capture that on camera. What do you think? You think that'll be possible? Let's try it. So I'm going to try and keep the air pressure low. So don't know if you're seeing that, but you're seeing it. It kind of comes out, then it kind of pulls back a little bit. Notice that? That means everything is put together correctly. Okay, for those of you who have never done it, let me walk you through putting in wheel seals and stuff. I've got the bearings packed. One thing I like to do, first wipe out as much of the old grease out of it as you can. If there was a lot of sand or grit or water in it, you might want to do a better job than just wiping it clean. This one, the grease was just old. So I like to put a little bit of extra grease in the center just because I can. And just because I like smearing grease, but I like to get that hollow cavity in between the two bearings filled up. You know, you want to leave a hole because the hub is going to stick through the spindle, so you don't want to overdo it or you'll just all push it out the end. But I like to fill it up if I can, as much as possible without going overboard on it. Oh, I got a bunch in there. Let's get that in there. And we're going to take our bearing. Now, it's the bearing with the larger of the two holes. Don't accidentally do it wrong, because then you'll have to knock the seal back out. So we'll just compare them here real quick if I can get that one up off of there. So it's the one with the larger of the two center holes. The OD on these are identical, but it's the one with the larger of the two center holes. Drop it in cone down, like so. You can pack some more grease in on top of this if you want. I typically do just around like that. On a street passenger car, you might consider this to be overkill, but on a vehicle that may get submerged, you know, the wheels might get submerged doing a river crossing, the more grease you can get in there, the less chance that water has or anything else has to get in there. I used to be taught that anytime you submerge your axles in water, you need to repack the wheel bearings. And I found that if you put enough grease in there, water ain't getting in. And water can get into amazing places. It really can. Oh, once your bearing is in, you take your seal. Your seal goes cup side in like that. Now, you need a tool to do this. Trust me, I've done it with wood blocks. You need a tool. Tools aren't expensive. There's a Harbor Freight near almost everybody. If you don't have a tool, a chunk of 4x4 and a big hammer can do it. But this is the tool I use. And it comes with a bunch of these different center pieces of different sizes. The tapered cone side seeks new races. I'm not putting races in this, so I'm just going to use this flat side that seeks the seal. So you stick it on. I don't even bother tightening except with my fingers. And we want one that's bigger than the seal itself, because we only want to put the seal in flush. At least that's how I do it. Put your tool down flush on there like that. Take your hammer. Make sure you're down good. And Bob's your uncle. Bearings and seals are in. And I am just going to go kind of over to this other side, make sure that I have enough grease in there to suit my fancy, and I don't, so I'm just going to add a little more grease inside that hub. Once the seals are on, it's not going anywhere, so don't worry about if you get too much. The spindle will just push it out. I mean, you'll waste some grease, but you won't even do that if you put it back in the tub. I'm going to stick my other packed bearing in there just because I can. It's going to go in there nice, and we're going to go out and put them on. Hope you can see it's really overcast out today, and it's going to start raining. I'd like to get this as far together as I can before it starts to rain on me. So let me give you a rundown of how this goes back together. Once the rear bearing and the seal are in, you push it up onto you push it all the way back until the seal goes up on its surface. You put the front bearing in, you push it all the way back. So now you should pretty much be together. If you spin it, the bearing will come out, but that's okay. So first thing that goes on is this smaller of the tabbed washers. If I remember right, the tab faces the front. So you put it on with the tab, you push it all the way back. Then one of the first two nuts goes on. If I remember right, the nuts are identical. Yeah, the nuts are identical. So, as they should be. Then you kind of thread that back. And I'm going to put the socket on it. Now, this is the part where you'll hear different things from different people. And you're going to hear my way of doing it. If these are new bearings, there's a preload. And you use a torque wrench and you preload them. With old bearings, you do not want to preload an old bearing. If you're putting the originals, putting the old ones back in, you do not want to preload them. I'm going to set the camera down here and see if I can get it aimed kind of sort of right. How's that looking, huh? I think that'll work. And the reason you preload a new bearing is because the rollers and the races have to wear together, and then they're going to produce a little slop. If you don't preload it, you'll get that slop. They won't wear in correctly, and you've basically ruined a set of bearings, and you'll have to replace them again. But old bearings are already worn in. If you've put them back together the way they came out, and I think I have, what I like to do is I like to get this, and it's just by feel. I get it right to where it's tight, and then I give it just a little bit more by hand. Now, if I was doing this on a passenger car, I'd be holding the nut in my fingers. Some people will tell you to rock it as you tighten it, and I've done that in the past. I have done this to where you rock it and you tighten it. But I have found that as long as you're in flush and everything's down, rocking it probably isn't necessary. But it's all just feel to me. And it's one of those things you develop over time. And until you do, it might be a good idea to have somebody come and help you. Now, this bearing goes on next. And I believe it goes on with this tab out. Is that right? No, that tab has to go in. No, it goes on with that tab facing out. Might not matter. I don't know. I'm just looking at how it came out, assuming I put it together correctly the last time, which of course is a big assumption. Then you tighten this nut. This is just a lock nut. You tighten that nut really good. You put the socket on it. I'm just going to put a big breaker bar on it. You get that tight, and then the large portion of that flat of that last washer where you saw it was bent, you bend that forward. And I know people who bend one forward and bend one back so that both nuts are engaged in it. Honestly, it's up to you. You do it how you feel is right. So I've got to go get the bar and a tool to bend that, and then we'll get that done. Okay, I checked the torque spec, and believe it or not, this outer nut is, the torque spec is 175 foot-pounds. That's the lock nut. You want to make sure you have all your washers in correctly, because you don't want to be putting that pressure on the inner nut. So I'm not sure this can withstand 175 foot-pounds, but you know what? Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Oh, what do you know? It kind of sort of did. That or I cracked the socket, one of the two. Well, what do you know? It lived. Okay, now we're just going to bend the tab on that forward, and I'm only going to do one. And let's pick one that's already boogered up, and we're just going to bend that forward so that it won't let that nut come loose. And I'll show you that as soon as I have it, so I like it. There we go. And can you see that, how I bent that one ear up? I hope you can, because when it's really bright out here, I can't see the screen, and when it's really dim out here, I can't see it either for some reason. Anyway, I just bent that tab up till it pressed against that flat on the nut. Now that nut can't come loose, and now we're going to pack our locking hubs and put those together. Okay, since I did not find anything wrong with these locking hub pieces, I just wiped as much of the old grease out of them as I could, and I'm just going to pack everything full of new grease and put it back together. So just going to put a bunch of grease back in here, because this surface kind of spins in with the hub, and I don't want any room for water to be in there or anything else. So I'm just going to kind of smear a bunch of grease in here, because why not? I mean, why not? It's not expensive. If it squeezes back out, you wipe it out and you say, okay, well, at least I know I got enough in there, right? So like that. And then we're going to do like that until it seats. And now we have a, I didn't bring anything to wipe my hands on. We have a snap ring that goes right in around there. See if I can do this with everything covered with grease. And we're just gonna kind of put that on there and kind of get it back till it pops in. Okay, that took a bunch of pulling on the axle and wiggling and pulling, but I finally got the axle to come out far enough to expose my snap ring groove. I think it's just how much grease is packed into it. I had to squoze it enough out somewhere to get enough out this way, but I got it. So let's put the rest of the hub together. Okay, I got my hub. I painted the outside of them after they came out of the ultrasonic cleaner. I'm just gonna pack all this shit full of grease, put it back on, and despite being cleaned out of grease, it still moves fairly easily. I'm gonna set it to 2 to make it easier, and gonna pack it up and put it on. And then I've got the bolts that hold it down. I've got anti-seize for those. One thing on these hubs, don't put so much grease in these. You can't turn them, that the grease has no place to go. I've actually seen that done. No, it wasn't me, although it certainly could have been. You want to get enough grease on everything so that you're sure that everything is greased. But yeah, don't be the guy that packs them so full that they won't work. All right, got a lot in the hub, and we're just going to put that back on, and it should line up without a problem, and it does. We're going to get some anti-seize on these bolts. Don't need any huge amount. I'm guilty in the past of using way too much, and also be aware that that stuff is hard to get off. That copper anti-seize, you get that on something, and I'm telling you, you can go through rainstorms and snowstorms, and that stuff will not go away. They're going in kind of hard, aren't they? Kind of a tight fit. Just gonna kind of get them stuck sort of in place to start with, and then I'm gonna buzz them in with this little quarter drive ratchet. Short one. I'm short one. I'm sure there's a torque spec on these too. Not sure what it is, and I'm not sure I really need to care. I'm going to go find the missing one and put it in, and we can start putting the other side together and get calipers on. We're almost done. So finally, some nice weather, and I can get this done. And it is nice out today. I mean, even the weeds agree that it's nice. And wasn't it just like a couple of weeks ago I had all the weeds out of here? Holy cow. I'm telling you. And look at it over there. Sheesh. Anyway, I did some stuff off camera. This job has taken far longer than it should have, but I got sent a bunch of wrong parts. I got sent the wrong caliper rebuild kits, and I had to source those. I got sent the wrong brake pads and had to re-get those. I got something else wrong too. I forget what it was. And then I had a brain fart and couldn't figure out how the calipers went back on. I pulled them both off at once, and I didn't pay any attention to which was left and right caliper, because I mean, they're marked. There's a part number and an L and an R after it. And, but I had to go back at one of my videos and look to see how they came apart. And yeah, the L goes on the right side and the R goes on the left side. Oh, that was AMC for you. I'm telling you. They sourced stuff from all over the place. And don't get me wrong, these are really good brakes. This was the first vehicle I ever owned that had disc brakes. Everything else I had was, you know, 50s and 60 vehicles with drums, and I was shocked at how good these brakes are on this when I first got it. Anyway, calipers are back on, hoses are on, brakes are bled, steering's back on, locking hubs and everything are all greased and back together and working good. Wheels are painted. The only thing that I really have left to do is I want to put the wheels back on it. I want to kind of do a quick test just to make sure that the locker is doing what it's supposed to be doing. Oh, and I saw a video here just a few days ago. Fabrat's putting a Spartan locker in the back of their square body Chevy truck, and maybe they just didn't show it on camera, but they didn't measure or test anything. They just threw it in, threw the cover back on, filled it up, and went. And it worked. So I expect mine would too, but since this is the first one I've done, I'm being a little extra careful. But I'm going to get the wheels back on, and we're going to test the thing real quick. And my cover's cleaned up over here and ready to go. And we're going to get this done here in an hour, I hope, today, because I'm tired of this particular part of the job. Okay, my tires are back on. I also checked the transfer case and transmission fluid while I was under there. Let's see if we can determine if this locker is actually working. See if I can get the camera on it. So I got a wheel chock. Both wheels are still off the ground. The hubs are locked, of course. I've got a wheel chock here to kind of simulate one needing to turn faster than the other. So, okay, so we're all turning at the same time. So if I put some resistance on one, I think it should break free. Shove that chock in there. There we go. And then if I take that chock out of there, they should start turning at the same time again, right? Like that, they should lock in. And they do. Okay. I can't think of any other way to test it than this. Obviously, I can't really try and drive it off the jack stand unless I had all four wheels jacked, three jacked up. I guess that would work. Yeah, I can't really think of any other way to test this. I would say it's working. What do you think? So yeah, I've convinced myself that this thing is working. I'm going to go ahead and clean the old gasket off of the housing and put this back together. Well, there you have it. That part of this job is done. The front is all back together, sealed up, filled with lube, and I checked the transmission and transfer case while I was under there. I really need to start thinking about getting this thing insured and get tags on it so I can start driving it, because I can't think of much else to do to keep me from driving it. The brakes were the big thing that I didn't want to drive it, but now that they're all done, I'm pretty confident in it. So I still want to rebuild the doors, the mechanisms, and get all these rubber pieces replaced. I need a little bit of repair work here where it cracked, and I'm probably cracking on the other side as well. And of course, I'd like to get it painted too. But how much of that's going to happen before it gets too hot to work out here anymore, I can't really tell you. I might have another 3 to 4 weeks before we start getting into the mid to upper 90s. And once we get near 100, I don't want to work outside too much. So anyway, I think that's going to be about it for this one. I hope you all enjoyed this. I hope you got something out of it, if nothing else, other than a laugh at my misfortunes. But you know what? Misfortunes or not, it's done. So thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye for now.